this one, I don't know. Now, they do make kind of a thing here. The world around Indy has changed around him. And I think James Mangold has said this before, like the 60s, it plays a particular part in this story, which is interesting. I always found Indy kind of a guy outside of time a little bit, just kind of a guy that's like, I'm going to be in Africa doing, looking through some temple, or India or something like that. It's interesting how, as Mangold is implying, that this will have a profound effect on him, almost like a Steve Rogers almost, in a way, which is, I thought it was a fascinating route to go. And one of the things they're showing here is obviously the space race is occurring, right, and everybody's kind of fixated on that.
But didn't they? I mean, and I haven't seen the original Indiana Jones movies in years, but they did kind of dabble into like what was going on at the time with the Germans. I don't want to say it on YouTube and stuff like that. Yeah. So it wasn't totally void of that back then.
No. Well, absolutely, yeah. The war obviously had a profound impact, but like I guess there's a way to do that, and wrong way to do that. The kind of obviously culture have been changed from the war. I'm not saying that it wouldn't have, but like 1960s iconography, that kind of culture impacting this whole thing gets me a little worried. And they have his retirement going on here, which is. Now you're highlighting his age. I don't know if this was the right route to go. We know how old he is. We don't have to be told. It's just a very kind of interesting way to go about it.
I'm torn on that. I'm torn on that because I think that you can't. Okay, like you don't want to beat people over the head with "I'm an old man." At the same time, though, you don't want to like pretend it's not a thing because it is a thing. He's 80 years old, and if he just pretended to be like 35-year-old Indy, but he's clearly not anymore, I think that would be kind of jarring too, right? I don't know.
I do think Dre's point is a really good one, is that the Indiana Jones films do feel like, so something existed in the 30s and 40s that really does not exist anymore. It barely existed in the 60s, and it for sure does not in the 2020s. And that is, there were places, this is the way I've always said this before, there were places in the world that most of the world had no clue existed, and therefore you could tell a fantasy story that existed in our world because we would never have seen those worlds, right?
Yeah.
Nowadays, the way I like to describe it is like you probably have someone vlogging from somewhere in the world you want to see, like
That's true.
Tomorrow. You know what I mean? Like it's just like so it takes away the mystery of the world. The mystery of the world is sort of gone, right? And so it's hard to work in the supernatural that way because it's kind of like, well, would I feel like I could go to New York and see the supernatural? Like probably not. Or do I feel like I go to Papua New Guinea and see the supernatural? Like probably not. There's probably a vlogger who's out there. But to OG's point, so I think you're right on that, Dre. To OG's point, you can't set Indy earlier unless you're going to do the entire thing as a age reduction technology. Yeah. Right. And so therefore you're faced with, we've got an old guy who sort of uncovered the secrets of the world, but there are much fewer secrets now. And I think that's what you have to play with, and that is insanely challenging because on the one hand you go, it's not really Indiana Jones, but here's Harrison Ford as Indiana Jones, and that's really difficult to come to terms with for sure.
Yeah, and I think they're handling, and this is, I mean, the technology here to de-age him is absolutely beautiful. Hopefully it looks like this throughout the whole movie, but I think this was a smart, and a lot of fans, you hear a lot of rumors and stuff, and a lot of fans don't like the idea of time travel, which is heavily implied here. I actually do, because I think this is the best way that you kind of get the Indy that we all fell in love with in the original films in the new movie. So you're getting a little bit of everything, right? You're getting the old man Indy, like, oh, I'm too old for this shit, right? That guy. But then you're also getting sprinkled in the Indy that we love from the old movies. So it's a good kind of mix of like kind of getting everything. Sure. You're not just stuck with old man Indy. You're getting the younger Indy too. And I think that time travel device, I think that's smart for this movie in a lot of ways. Now, see how it.
Time to grow up. That's it, right? That's totally it, right?
My roadcaster is trying to tell me something. No, but
it's time to grow up, Indy. Jay's right, though. I mean, even with that point, OG, these things are like really challenging to pull off. I think you can do the time traveling thing, but it's got to be done effectively and smart in the right way. We've seen a lot of franchises get, skewed with that. Obviously, I think Terminator's the most, the biggest example of that. But we've seen others kind of dabble in this realm, and it can go south really, really quickly. So that's going to be an interesting aspect here. We get our first looks at. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, you go ahead. I was going to comment on the time travel, but go ahead.
Oh, no, comment on the time travel because I was going to comment on Phoebe Waller-Bridge.
That's the controversial part of our video.
We're getting there.
But I think that with the time travel, this is my guess about what's happening. My guess of the story set up based on what we've seen is that there's someone who likes the evil German party who realizes that the evil German party no longer exists and has power in the world, who wants to go back and be able to change that. The thing that it looks like with this particular time travel, and I hope that this is the case, is that it looks like the consciousness of the person who holds the dial is what goes back in time, not the old Indy goes back to see the young Indy, because that would be really, really messy. So what I'm hoping is that Indy, basically by turning the dial of destiny, can revert back to himself in his younger brain and be younger. That's what it seems like is happening. We're not seeing Harrison Ford old and young in the same same space. Can it work? Sure. As Dre is astutely pointing out, is it dangerous territory? Yeah, it is. Like, it's very difficult.
Doesn't that restrict how far you can actually go back to with the dial?
Yeah, it does. Yeah.
That's an interesting thing to kind of think about. If in fact they're going in that direction, which I think they are. I think that's how they're gonna have their cake and eat it too. You're gonna have maybe a flashback scene, what actually happened. Dial of Destiny takes you back to that time period, how you can actually change that and so forth. It's gonna be really, really interesting. Indiana Jones 5 is gonna be a big hit film. I mean, maybe it has to be. We're talking about a $350 million project right now. Like we've gone over, you got to make a lot of money. For example, right? So, John Wick 4. It is now at around, I think, $300 million at the box office right now. Like, that's a bona fide win, no matter how you slice it, because that was a $100 million production budget. Probably spent like 100 or so million on advertisement right there. 50% box office goes to studio or whatever. That's gonna be a win, no question, right there. But if Indy 5 had to did the same, that would be really bad. Like, I mean, really, really, really bad, just because of how expensive it actually is. That's just how it goes.
Yeah, we've got a clip coming out where we predicted what we were going to make on it. But I'm sitting at 1.2 billion. So I agree with Kevin. I think it's going to be huge. I'm positive about this film. I think Dre, you were the lowest, and then OG, you were somewhere in the middle.
Yeah. I was like just a little bit over. I think a little bit over a Billy. I think if it's a good movie though, like I think if this movie's riddled with. See, here's the issue too, and this is the elephant in the room. There's going to be a contingent of people that are going to kind of hate on this movie no matter what, because it's Kathleen Kennedy still.
Yeah.
And kind of put a narrative out there that the movie is not, regardless of whether it's good or not, there's going to be that narrative out there. And that's the thing, is that does influence, I think, right?
Yeah.
I think there is some influence in that. A lot of people blow that off, but I don't think that's something to really blow off. I think that when you have a lot of stuff out there, Indy sucks, I think people kind of, even subconsciously, kind of take that in.
Yeah, I think I do.
Right? It's so I don't know.
I think a lot of people are impacted the other way too. Like, for example, John Wick 4, we heard it was like really, really good, and then we started seeing people going in just because it was like, ooh, I heard this was really good. Heard a little bit of that from Mario, which is interesting. Kevin Davis, Super Mario Brothers not going to make $1 billion. I don't know where you're getting that information from. It hasn't even opened some of its biggest territories, so I'm pretty sure it will. But it's interesting, the financing on that film, because Uni's got to share 50% of its revenue with Nintendo. Whoops.
Yeah.
So we'll actually see how much that film ends up making for both parties.
Nintendo got a sweetheart deal out of that. I mean, I've never heard of something like that. 50%. I mean, that's Universal will just whatever you want, Nintendo, I'll give it to you. It's pretty much. But but go ahead, Jay. I'm sorry.
Oh no, I was just gonna no. You go ahead. You were on a train. I was gonna interrupt that train, so you go. You go for it.
Oh no, I was just say to kind of come back to what we were saying, Jay. Yeah, I think it's I'm kind of close to where you're at with it, like a little over a Billy, close to 1.2. As long as it's a good movie, as long as there's nothing super egregious in here that fans are like, oh my god, this is terrible. I think it's going to do very, very well. And I am, like you, Jay, a very big Mangold fan. I trust him immensely. Ford v Ferrari was one of my favorite movies from him. Absolutely incredible storytelling there. I don't even like racing. I don't care at all about racing, and I was completely entranced by that movie the entire time. Yeah. He's a great filmmaker. I'm not so much worried about him. I'm worried about Kennedy meddling and getting all involved. That's what I'm worried about more than anything. But if Mangold can do Mangold things, this movie's gonna crush.
Yeah.
I don't know. You got Kathleen Kennedy on one side, and you have Phoebe Waller-Bridge on the other. So that's what concerns me immensely. It's interesting. They say that Indy was a mercenary? That's interesting. I didn't quite know that. That's fascinating. Wow. I think, this brings us to like the tone of this one and what they're trying to convey to the actual audience themselves. Now, the Rolling Stones simply with the Devil song. It's like, okay, I get it. That's what a lot of the trailers are doing nowadays. They're playing pop songs in there to kind of get you hooked or whatever. Obviously, we know that the time period is gonna have an impact. So feels somewhat appropriate. Okay, whatever. Is it indie? I don't think so, but I'll let it slide. Whatever. I kind of wanted a swashbuckling adventure, but, c'est la vie. And then you hear the Symphony of the Devil kind of, the hoot, hoot, that part of it kind of intermixed with the actual score itself. And that was just like, what are we doing here? Like, this is now I'm not exactly in on this. This is really, really weird now. And then we get that famous line from Phoebe Waller-Bridge, which... Now it's like, this is why I was worried. I stole it, then you stole it, then they stole it, or whatever, and then I stole it. It's called capitalism. It's like, what are they? What? Like, how? Why? Why would you do that? Look, in the context of a 2.5 hour film, 2 hour film, let's slide. I'm sure in context, it might play better than when it's actually being perceived. But this is like, what, a minute trailer, if that? Why would you include that in your trailer that you're trying to showcase for your movie?
Right.
Totally bizarre, totally off choice, and it just ruined the tone for me. I think what they were trying to convey via this trailer.
Yeah, absolutely. And go ahead, Jay, because Jay has a hard out, so he's going to be leaving us. But Jay, any final thoughts before you take off?
Final thoughts, and then I'll be out. Fantastic time hanging out with you guys. Thanks for having me on. Really fun.
Thank you.
I do think that joke is awkward. The capitalism joke is awkward, particularly given the fact that capitalism, in large part the West and democracy, which usually has capitalism as its financial structure, just won World War II about a decade earlier, 2 decades earlier. And the 60s were one of the most positive capitalism times that you could have seen. We were in a Cold War with the Soviet Union already. They were the evil that were communists, and then we had capitalism here in the States, and capitalism was building things like the interstates that we have today. It was building the Disneyland. It was building the space race. Was our space race was built off. Even though it was a government entity, it was still like this idea that we were positive and heading in a direction that was really, really positive. So I hope that joke plays as like awkward, and that's not like a subtle like message. Kennedy talking about messages. Right. I don't know. I hope it's not that. So we'll see. Look, do I love the fourth film, Crystal Skull? No, I think it's just a very okay, meh film. Do I absolutely love the 3 films, and it's my favorite trilogy of all time, and it's my favorite franchise of all time? Yes, absolutely. I love it. I've read most of the novels, almost all the novels, the comics. I love Indiana Jones. Because of that, and because of Mangold, I am insanely positive about this film. 1.2 billion might be overshooting it, but to Dre's point, they need to get up into that range for it to actually make money, because of how much they spent. Sometimes we don't hear production budgets, and it's like, did it make money? Did it not? Well, we know what the budget was, and like Dre's saying, they're marketing it already, so we know. But if they're going to show it at Cannes, they're going to show it at Sundance. Look, I'm a white pill on Indiana Jones. I hope it's awesome. But we'll see. We'll see what it comes down to. I'm looking forward to you guys hearing your reaction, especially to the Acolyte stuff. And if you watch that interview, it is so cringe. I'm looking forward to seeing what you guys think of that. But in the meantime, you can follow me on Twitter. You can hear my thoughts about some more of this stuff down here. And then we're going to record. I don't know if you guys want to record Thursday or Friday, so hit me up about when you want to record for Mandalorian, and we will be back at it talking about the next episode of Mandalorian. We've got some cool guests coming up that want to come on, and we'll be back. So thanks for having me, guys. Enjoy the rest of your conversation. It's been an absolute pleasure. Everybody in the chat, love you guys. Take it easy. I'll see you guys later. Bye.
See you there, Jay.
Yes.
Yes. Yes,
Bye.
yes. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Always awesome. Always awesome having Mr. Jay Shear. Oh yeah. Thank you for joining, Jay. Woohoo. Yes. All right. So let's continue with our Indiana Jones conversation, I think.
Yeah.
I think that was interesting. Okay. So let's go. So now you had issues with the capitalism remark. Now it's interesting. Jay brought up a great point here with this capitalism joke, is that maybe in a film set in the 2020s, right?
Yeah.
That kind of joke would feel appropriate, because there is a little bit of like this thing where people are kind of like, I don't know, capitalism, is it working for us, kind of thing. Okay, I get that. But he makes a great point. This isn't 2020 though. This is the 1960s, where it's a different era. And is that going to necessarily, it's a modern joke set in the 60s.
There was definitely an emerging countercultural movement happening right now, like, for sure, but that wasn't super mainstream, I don't think. Obviously the Vietnam War was going on at that point. People had very much distrust in the government at this point. It's interesting, if you look at the polling, trust in government in the 1950s, 1940s was plus 95%. By about this time period, it would have been below 30%. It's very interesting to see that cap off there. Obviously JFK assassination, Vietnam War, all the kind of scandals that were actually taking place. It's alarming. But I don't think anybody said that capitalism was the bad entity and all of that. To say that at that time would have been very faux pas. That would have made you a commie, basically, right? So that's a weird thing. Just to include it, maybe in context it actually works out, but again, this is a couple-minute trailer right here. What is the tone that you want to have actually out there? I just think it missed the mark, at least for me there, and took me out of it completely. Yeah,
it's interesting, and it was weird, and we can't play it here, but when they say that those lines, it's a weird jump cut of all three lines. There's three lines.
Yeah.
And it's a weird jump cut of all three. And I'm wondering if it's like, if that's a scene where, you take from me, I take from you, that's capitalism. Is that one scene, or is it lines cut from different parts of the movie and put together to make a joke for the trailer? Right.
And that's what I mean. I mean, it's just, it in context could play very differently, right? It could really work. But again, I mean, this is promotional product that you are assembling in order to promote this film, and it's just done. It's not executed, I think, as we would maybe have imagined. Now, this kind of stuff right here, when they're in this temple and stuff like that, they're going through, or they look like they're in someplace in almost like Morocco or something. Like this stuff is really good. I think it really plays quite well and establishes a nice tone for this actual film. It's just some of the other stuff, the modern cityscape, New York City setting or whatever. It's a little off, and it just some of the stuff, the music choice. It's just I don't know what tone they were quite going for here. I don't think it quite worked as well as they imagined. Interestingly enough, they have disabled likes and dislikes on it. Disabled by owner, you see that? So That's interesting.
That is, but that kind of goes to there's definitely the culture war is definitely raging right now. And I don't take a lot of that stuff seriously, the likes and dislikes, because there are campaigns from both sides of this war actively going out and kind of trying to make their point, basically, right?
I guess so.
I think that's a big thing here, and I just think that, I don't know.
There's a shot too, this shot right here, where he's leaping into the car here. Maybe I can play like a frame of it. It looks really awkward if you play it back in live time. It looks really strange. If anybody has that trailer, go back and go to this moment right here. It just looks. I don't think the effects are also like at a pristine point right now. The VFX work is a little shaky, which is quite concerning because it's April and this comes out in June. Did we
June 30, I believe.
July, something like that.
I'm not sure, but a couple months, basically.
Couple months, right? 143. Go back and see that. It just looks awkward. So. It's just some VFX work looks really good. Others don't. The tone is a little bit, I don't know where they're quite going. Tracker website, let's see. Alia, what do you got for us? The Tracker website I shared doesn't yet have data for after the trailer. It's not yet known if the trailer hurt interest in the film. I don't think it necessarily hurt it, but I don't think it won a lot of people over to it.
That's a great way of putting it, Dre. Yeah, I think the trailer was kind of what the other ones were, where it's like, okay, it's Indiana Jones, cool, but it's nothing that's like, oh man, yeah. I haven't seen that yet, and the biggest issue that I'm having with a lot of these trailers is that they're very dialogue heavy sort of trailers, right? With Indiana Jones, I want more adventure. Like, I want to see more of this cool temple stuff, more archaeology, more adventure, more adventuring, right? And I see a lot of like these scenes in like these libraries and these rooms, and it's just like, come on, it's Indiana Jones.
Yeah.
Let's see some action. And there is some in here. I'm not saying there's not, but I just want to see more Indiana Jonesy kind of stuff and less like a bunch of people talking around a table. And that's my biggest issue with this movie, is that kind of stuff. Now, the good part about it is this stuff, but also I think that the deep fake stuff, that the guy they hired to do this stuff for Lucasfilm is absolutely incredible. He crushed it with Luke Skywalker in the Book of Boba. He's doing this too for Indy. Really, really great effect. I'm digging the deep fake stuff for sure. It really is kind of like the star of all this footage so far for me. I've been really impressed with that.
Yeah, some of the stuff looks actually really, really good. Some of the effects work looks great. Like I said, it's just inconsistent, right? Like when they're like hopping out of that plane, actually looks pretty good.
Yeah.
It looks like, ooh, that's something right there. Like I said, more temple stuff, more swashbuckling. Just don't take itself too seriously. The indie films never did. So it'll be interesting to see. Also, too, very interesting about this, for example, they changed the logo. So if you see, nope, thank you. If you see right here, this is the poster that actually revealed with it. And you can see it's slightly changed. It's got a more kind of a modern typeface to it. They kind of split it up, Indiana and Jones on separate lines right there. That's very different than necessarily how it's been portrayed in the past. For example, somebody put up a mock poster. You can see the kind of illustration that you have right here. It's very, very different. I don't know why they did that.
Well, it's weird to me because they did like I forgot the gentleman's name who does these posters, but he's an absolute legend.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I know what you're talking about.
Right. And I don't want to get his name wrong, but it's funny because they lean into the nostalgia by making the poster look like he did it, right? But then they kind of shit the bed with the logo. It's like, if you're gonna do this, like leaning into like the style of the old movies, then lean into it 100%. Don't do it and then have the logo modern. Like, come on, Lucasfilm. Like, this is the kind of stuff that really frustrates me. Is like, God, you're like 95% there, and you got to do the logo now modern. Like, why? You know, I don't understand it. And I hope that was just like a one-time thing. Hopefully, when the posters hit the public, when closer to the movie, hopefully we see this, because it was like this initially. With all the promo stuff, the other trailers, this was the logo they had.
Really?
And now, yes. Go back. If you want to type on YouTube, go to the teaser that we originally got. Let's check it out.
Okay. All right.
Because yeah, maybe put teaser because I don't think it was a full.
Right.
A full one back then. And let's see here.
Yeah. Right.
Okay.
This one right here, 4 months ago.
Okay, now go to the very end.
Okay. Let's see. I'm gonna have to play it a little bit here.
Yeah, go to.
Maybe too far.
There it is.
Yeah.
See?
Yeah.
It was the old school.
Wow.
And now they changed it. Like, why? Of all the things, you have the most iconic. I don't want to call it logo. What, typography, I guess you call it? You have the most iconic typography that's ever graced the planet, basically, right? But this and the Star Wars one, why would you mess with something that's like perfection? I don't understand that.
40 years established too, by the way. I mean, this was the logo that they used in the 90s and all that, you know, with the video
attraction.
games and so forth. Yeah, the attraction, the games, the comics, all that. They all use this because, I mean, you see it, you know, exactly what you're supposed to be seeing right here. I believe a take on this was done with like the DuckTales logo or something like that, right? Because it was so iconic, you know, everybody would try to copy it. I don't know.
It blows my mind, Ray. This logo is synonymous with adventure. That's why, like you said, that's why like DuckTales use it. That's why the old Islands of Adventure logo is very reminiscent of the Indiana Jones.
Right,
they've changed that. That's a whole other can of worms. but that's why they went with that kind of style. It's synonymous with adventure. You have something in at your disposal that's just incredible, and you go, that's the thing we want to change. God.
Drew Struzan, I believe, was the original
that's
artist.
the gentleman.
Yeah, for the I mean, created all kinds of posters, including Shawshank Redemption, Blade Runner, all kinds of stuff, Mallrats, Indiana Jones. It's just amazing stuff, and they evoke his style in a pretty decent way. But I don't know, that was a weird way to go. Love Lo says if they wanted to modernize it, they could have just removed the shadow.
There you go. That's fine.
Yep.
I mean, just do that. Something very simple, you know. Mm-hmm. But this is something you don't need to modernize. You know, I don't understand this. Like even it works. It still works to this day. Like, why are they trying to modernize something that totally works?
And this is just kind of the scary thing, you know. This is just kind of like you know, if you're making these kind of brain dead decisions, just keep that stuff there. I mean, you know, it's just. This is absolutely what you should be doing. What other decisions are they making behind the scenes? That's what concerns me. Yeah. So we'll see.
We'll see. Now we got some more Star Wars to cover.
Yes, we do. Should we get into the Visions stuff?
Yes. Oh my God, this is dope.
I know you were really passionate about this, and
incredible.
It does look pretty good here. Some of the stuff is So we're getting a mixture of animation styles this time around. Is that right?
Yeah. And last time we got a mixture as well. I mean, but the overall kind of for season 1 of Visions, it was very much anime styles, but they switched it up. Sometimes, like one of the shorts was kind of like a black and white, kind of sketchy. One was very cutesy, like an Astro Boy kind of style, but they were all kind of like this overarching kind of Japanese style. This season doesn't look Japanese at all, but same kind of idea though. They're kind of taking different styles. Like this particular scene right here, they kind of have like a weird, almost hybrid of like CGI and like painted kind of style. There's a lot of CGI in these shots. There's even some like kind of like this.
See that katana there as a lightsaber.
Dope.
That's pretty dope, right?
That's dope. They even have like kind of like Chicken Run style, like stop motion claymation kind of style.
Right.
Just really, really cool art design here with all these various shorts. I mean, I love what they're doing with Star Wars Visions. Just really experimental kind of stuff. It's awesome, dude. This is incredible.
It's just taking this amazing sandbox, which is Star Wars, and just having people just go run with it. You know, stuff that's not canon, but that is, you know, that can free you creatively to really just take these things in wild directions, right? And I think this is really, really cool. Like I said, the animation styles they're different, but they bring. I mean, look at this.
Hyper realistic and some really stylized.
Yeah, that's just something really unique. This is kind of your claymation or stop motion animation style right here. That's very, very interesting. I mean, I was impressed. I think every single lead here is female, which I thought was an interesting choice, especially since we had just gone off. You know, we had just seen a lot of female-centric content actually announced. Ahsoka, for example, the Rey movie, and so forth. It's like, oh, okay. All right, okay, well, we're going this direction. That's fine. It's just, you know, that it's going to be interesting to see how retailers play that with the, obviously, male-centric toys and so forth. That was a big demo for Star Wars. We'll see. Overall, though, I was pretty impressed with what I saw. I mean, honestly, this stuff is really, really cool, really, really out there. And just being that it's not canon creates a lot of, like I said, a lot of creativity that the artists can actually bring in here, which is the whole point, which is really cool.
Yeah, no, a lot of creative freedom here that you can do. Like, I mean, every still here is like, you can frame it. Yeah, you can frame it and put it on your wall. I mean, it's absolutely insane. Yeah, I was a huge fan of season 1. I will definitely be checking this out. And then Lovelow here says, remember the Force is female.
That's kind of what I was getting at. Look, I don't want to sound like
Are you being toxic, Dre? Are you being a toxic
well, I don't
fan?
want to sound like that. I'm not trying to. I'm really not. But it's just, it's like, you know, when you see project after project after project after project, you go, that's interesting. Just it's an interesting observation to make.
Yeah, no, it is, and it's all about execution. You know, at the end of the day. And it also depends on how they market it, you know, like we were talking about earlier with Ahsoka. It's a very female-centric kind of show, at least it seems like it, but they're not really like, you know, as long as you just kind of do it and don't like make that your selling point, I'm pretty much okay with it, you know?
Yeah. It's interesting, you know, they say representation matters, and I say, yeah, it does matter. In the reverse, it does matter as well. So we will see how that story develops. But I mean, look at that.
I'm telling you,
it looks insane,
dude. This is a YouTube video that's being paused, and you can literally print that out and frame it on your wall. It's dope as shit, dude. It's dope as hell. This is awesome, man. And this is like this really cool kind of painted look, and it's. Dude, this is incredible. Alia down here says a variety of animation studios from around the world, including Aardman, Chicken Run. Okay, that's why it looks like Chicken Run. Right. And Cartoon Salon, which is the Wolf Wakers, among others. Incredible. I think
they said 9 from 9 different world-renowned studios, which is absolutely fantastic. I mean, this is really cool, and it's it's the stuff that we all want to see in the films.
well, and the cool, absolutely. And the cool thing about doing this, right, is that it gives Lucasfilm an idea of what works and what doesn't in animation. Right. So this can kind of be information data, as Bob Chapek would like to say, data for like a Dave Filoni who does all the animation for Lucasfilm. Mm-hmm. Dave can look at this and go, okay, so this animation style really worked well for Star Wars Visions. Let's go ahead and utilize that in the next show. It allows them to experiment and see what works and what doesn't for shows going forward that will be canon, right? So I think that's pretty cool. It allows them to kind of experiment and test things out for future stuff.
I'd say live action as well. I mean, if some of these ideas actually work out and could be implemented in a way that's consistent with the kind of canon story, bring some of that stuff over. It's a really great showcase of just creativity in this world that we all know and love, without any of the repercussions that come along with going out there, right? So I do enjoy that part of the process. Overall, though, really strong. And I mean, I was intrigued from the initial Star Wars Visions stuff, and this looks like it's going to be really cool. I haven't actually delved into it much, though. I mean, I know you swear by the first season. I just haven't done it yet. Really excited to now.
Yeah, well, the thing I love about Japanese and their approach to animation is that the Japanese look at animation much differently than Americans do. Sure. They see, I mean, and this is changing, to be fair. I mean, American audiences are definitely seeing animation more than just kid stuff compared to like in the 70s and 80s, right? It was like all about like, But Japan has always has always had this kind of like like this respect for animation. Like they don't talk down to their audiences. They do a lot of adult-driven animation, and that's what I love about Japanese culture and how they kind of like approach animation. So when you see all these legendary anime studios, kind of their take on Star Wars in season 1, it's gonna blow you away, Dre. They do a lot. A lot of it is pretty heavy stuff, pretty adult-driven stuff, and cool. I love how they don't talk down to the audience. It's pretty dope, dude. I think you're gonna dig it. I think you're really gonna dig it.
Alia has the studios that are featured.
Awesome. Perfect.
So we can put that on screen right there. Have our audience at home read that. Pretty cool, but a bunch of different countries. Ireland, Japan, South Africa, Chile, South Korea, France. Interesting because the male lead in Acolyte is from South Korea, who you'll recognize him from Squid Games probably. But I didn't know that he didn't speak English at all.
Really?
And he had a translator. Yeah, he had a translator during his interview. And so I'm like,
how's that going to work?
Lead?
Yeah, that's interesting. How's that going to work in the show? Unless he speaks some kind of alien dialect and it's captions for him. Maybe they go around it that way. That's interesting, dude. Now, speaking of the Acolyte,
sure.
Should we dive into that?
Leslie Headland, the interview there. Oh boy. Okay, yeah. Let's do it right here because Jay was like, "Man, this interview is cringe," and I gotta see it. I gotta see it, so we might as well do it live, right?
Yeah.
Now, some of the stuff coming out of the Acolyte and some of the other interviews actually sound pretty good. Leslie Headland, who I believe is the showrunner on this show, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Apparently not so much. So let's see her come out here. Can't play it obviously because of music.
Yeah.
But she makes a little strut right here. She's coming out.
Oh.
A little cringe. It's a little cringe. This is how we start.
Okay.
Oh boy, guys.
All right.
We are in for it here. Let's see. Bring it up slowly.
You know, yeah.
Let's see what she has to say.
Talk about an entrance. That was a catwalk. That was fashion show worthy.
Yeah, I just try to treat everything as if we're on RuPaul's Drag Race. That's kind of like my...
Okay, pause it real quick.
Yep.
You know, this is interesting, okay? I feel like there's a disconnect here with what Bob Iger wants to do with the Walt Disney Company right now.
Yep.
And what Lucasfilm is trying to do here.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Bob Iger's coming out there and he was very clear about it at that annual meeting. We understand audiences and parents have different comfort levels, and we're trying to depoliticize. We're trying to moderate our approach, right?
Bring it in just a little bit.
Bringing it in, right? And again, the Walt Disney Company is never going to be the Daily Wire, okay? It's always going to be a left-leaning thing because all of Hollywood is left-leaning, and they've been that way for decades. But at least they're kind of bringing it in from the extreme left that they have been in the past few years. They're moderating it from that and coming into the center a little bit, right? Okay, cool. Mm-hmm. And that's what Iger is saying, and I think that's the right move, okay? Right. Totally. Every studio is doing that. Zazzy's doing that over at Warner too, okay? And that's the right thing to do.
Correct.
But Lucasfilm seems to be like they're just partying like it's 2017 still. Like, hey, you know what? Like, I don't understand that, right? And it's like,
when you're taking Disney's money, and when you are developing something for a Disney platform, whether it be theatrical, Blu-ray, physical, streaming, whatever, there's a certain amount of responsibility that comes with that. And if they haven't learned now, they might learn pretty fast. But we'll see how well Acolyte will have done, because I'm sure this doesn't necessarily play well with executives right now, understanding that change is occurring as we speak.
And you open yourself up for people to hate your show before you even premiere it. Why? Why are you setting yourself up for this? Why?
I mean, I think a lot of people were turned off over the Andor comments that were coming out right before that show actually launched. It was like, oh, this is a show all about Trump and all this kind of stuff. And it's like, why would you do that? Why evoke that name? Why say those things? You're just going to be turning off half your audience before the show's even been released. And it's really unfortunate.
Work the runway. Work the runway.
You worked that runway. I thought, what a tough act to follow. Jon Favreau just discovered our gatekeeper and was marveling at being on Navarro again. And then here you come. And you did it.
Here she
came. You did it. You understood the assignment. Leslie, so good to have you here.
Thank you for having me. Thank you all so much for being here. Thank you so much.
Now, I'm a big fan of The High Republic. I know you're a big fan of Star Wars The High Republic, but you're the first person to take a stab at bringing The High Republic to life in live action with your show, The Acolyte. What's that been like for you?
Well, it's so exciting. I mean, as somebody that grew up both with, obviously George's films and then the release of the special editions, for a long period of time, I'm not going to age myself, but the extended universe and a lot.
Okay.
Expanded universe.
Yes. And we were talking about this pre-show, but I'll kind of repeat my overall thoughts on air right now.
Sure.
The way she lists all that out, right? Well, obviously George's original stuff and the special editions. Do you know any Star Wars fan? Honestly, real talk
never.
Here. Real talk. Have you ever met a Star Wars fan that says, yeah, I've been a Star Wars fan. I remember growing up with the special editions. Have you ever heard a Star Wars fan reference it in that way before in your life?
No, never. They'll usually say, or I remember going, my first film was a Star Wars film, and that really changed my mind, changed my perspective. Older people might say, I remember going to the prequels with my parents. They brought me, and it was just a mind-melting moment right there. I was so immersed into the world. Very rarely does anybody talk about the special editions, and look, I get it. That was,
I mean, it happened, but
the films were released in a kind of physical format that I think kids will remember, but they don't necessarily go to that as their first thing. That's a weird thing.
It's almost like the only time I ever hear it referenced is usually a fan being mad that they happened.
Yes, yeah, exactly.
But no one ever goes, oh man, I grew up on those special editions. Who says this? It's weird.
I love your description of it. It's somebody was looking at Wikipedia right before this interview and had that itemized list of all that stuff that came out, and it's oh, here we go. This is what I'll just reference to make myself look like a fan. Not very encouraging, but we'll go on.
It's real quick. It's me. Full disclosure, I'm not a sports fan at all, right? I don't know. I don't know who played in the Super Bowl. I don't pay attention to any of it, right? It's
sure.
OG coming out here going I love sports, man. Those Brooklyn Dodgers, huh?
Exactly. Oh, rough.
I'm not going to age myself, but the extended universe and a lot of that publishing was really the only Star Wars that I had. And so what I love about the High Republic is that it's kind of in the grand tradition of what Star Wars was for the fans for a really long time, which is, you know, both these kind of high concept, beautifully rendered stories, but at the same time pulpy action, and the kind of stuff that we always love and adore about Star Wars in the live action. So I wanted to get to have the opportunity to bring both of those things together was so exciting to me. So from a narrative standpoint, that was the case. But I have to also say, I really loved the challenge of marrying the aesthetics of what has already been designed for the High Republic and what the Jedi look like in the High Republic, and bridging that gap between who they are then and who they are when we meet them in The Phantom Menace. So that was also very exciting.
No, and this is the thing.
That was also very exciting. Just definitely got the Valley Girl right there.
Yeah, oh, totally. Well, here's the thing, though. The High Republic, where it sits on the timeline, is a fascinating time, is a fascinating era. There's a lot you could do in this time period leading up to those prequel films, right?
Yeah.
There it is, High Republic.
High Republic
Right.
right there. And then you had the Fall of the Jedi, which is basically the prequels.
Right. Okay, so there's a lot you can do here. Okay, so there's potential. And here's the thing. I will give the Acolyte a 100% chance, open mind. I will. I'll go into it. I'll watch it, and I'll give it an honest opinion. This thing, she might absolutely crush it. She might destroy. This thing might be a dope show. But big but here. I am very worried about this one. I've been hearing a lot of weird stuff surrounding the Acolyte. You know, Cameron Pasha has been talking about this a lot. Hollywood Insider saying that this show is not even happening. It's kind of like, you know.
Oh.
And there's like lawsuits and stuff and surrounding this show, and there's all kinds of weirdness going on. There's just so much weird stuff around this show. I'm just kind of like, okay, what is going on? How is this going to turn out? All right.
It does seem to be some trouble, right? With every single Lucasfilm production, it seems, outside of the Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni stuff,
right?
Which even they can't be fully insulated from it.
No.
Obviously, Rangers of the New Republic and all that. Always some drama, and it seems like this has a good amount of it. Now, the reports about this show not being a real show, that was an interesting theory for a little while, up until the point where Bob Iger said very affirmatively, I believe at the Morgan Stanley conference this past time, he said, yeah, I've seen The Acolyte, I think it's great. Okay, so it's like, all right, so they have enough to show the CEO. CEO's actually remarking on it, talking about it.
Yeah.
This thing's going to happen, folks.
Yeah.
And now we see that they made quite a bit of it out at the studio panel.
Yeah.
For Star Wars Celebration. I think it's happening.
It's happening.
You know, the whole theory that it's not. But like you said, though, it's okay.
Well, if it doesn't happen, Pasha's going to have the win of the century.
Yeah, that's for sure. That's for sure, right? That is.
Wow.
Woo, that'll be big.
Go ahead, Ray. I'm sorry.
No, I was just going to say that it's interesting the kind of drama behind the scenes with this film.
Yeah.
For this not film but series. I think it could still be pretty cool. I just don't trust the people creating it, especially this Leslie Headland right here.
Yeah.
Obviously, she has a notorious past or infamous past as an assistant working directly with Harvey Weinstein.
Oh,
that's
not good.
That's not good, and we might have more to that story in the coming days. But it's I don't know. I'm just not sure. When we talk about creatives who might not necessarily be as into the work as we would like them to be and are into some other things, maybe more, and how they bring that into their work, I think Leslie Headland might be a good example of this. But hey, we don't know. The show could end up really, really good. I haven't
seen any of her work, so I really have no reference point for her. She might be a brilliant creative, and I probably should check out. I think she did Russian Dolls. Maybe I should check it out and kind of get an idea for what she does. Because I'm going to give her a fair shake, but I'm with you. I'm very nervous. Alia here says, I was surprised the series was mentioned because there is a lawsuit. I thought it would be on the back burner for that reason alone. That's a great point, Alia, right? Yeah. You see stuff getting canceled at Lucasfilm for far lesser reasons.
For sure.
But this one has an active lawsuit. And it's like
they're
full
just-
steam ahead.
I know. I was kind of surprised about. Maybe they're too far into production.
Could be.
It's just got to follow the natural development cycle or production cycle just because of those reasons. I'm not sure, but very interesting.
Awesome. Great answer. And this is your first Star Wars celebration, and I believe yesterday you were part of the studio showcase and you got brought to stage by a Wookiee Jedi.
I did. I did get brought on stage by a character I created, Wookiee Jedi Master named Kelnaka, played by Jonas.
We all know and love.
What do you think, by the way, of that? The costume was a little bit strange. If you saw it.
I actually saw it. I didn't mind it too much personally. Yeah, but did they show it on here in this clip in particular, or do you have it on you? We could check that out.
Check it out.
Yeah,
Because we don't have a lot to go on for this series. We've seen some behind the scenes production stuff. And
Yeah.
that's really tough to judge by because we know
It
that
is.
there's so much post now.
Yeah, let's check it out because I saw glimpses of it on my timeline and stuff like that, but I didn't really dive into it. And
Let me see. Yeah, here we go. Got a little bit of it right here.
okay, let me see.
Kind of had the same reaction that I do to it.
Well, yeah, it's not so much the Wookiee. The Wookiee's fine. It's the I think it's what he's wearing that looks a little cheap. Maybe. Am
Yeah.
I tripping on that? Is that kind of where you're at? It's the outfit that looks kind of jarring, I guess.
It's really small for a Wookiee. Do you notice that? It's like out of scale.
Yeah. You're right
That's-
about that. At first, I didn't notice it. I didn't even really, honestly, I saw him like on my timeline. I didn't really pay too much attention to him. But now that I'm sitting here just kind of looking at it, yeah, the outfit is what makes it kind of weird.
It's a
That's
little
weird.
jank. It's a little jank.
Yeah,
but
yeah, it
we'll-
doesn't look like super high quality, like costuming or something. I don't know.
I agree. Continue forward.
I couldn't pass up the idea of having a Wookiee Jedi in live action. I just as soon as it was established in the High Republic that was a thing that could happen, I was like, get it in here. Let's go. Action.
Yes, please.
It's been kind of fans have been.
We
wanting
love
that for quite
Wookiees.
some
We
time,
love
so
Jedi. You know we're going to love a Wookiee Jedi.
It seems kind of like inevitable, honestly, but yes, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Now,
But wait,
I know
Dre, real
something
quick.
about the Star Wars.
We didn't see, because the prequels had like Jedis all over the place. We never
Yeah.
saw, even in the background, a Jedi Wookiee in any of those prequel movies.
That's interesting.
Because
So we saw a very young Wookiee, like a youngling version of a Wookiee going through like the ceremonies to like build your own lightsaber, right? In the Clone Wars.
Right.
It's about the closest we've gotten, I think. And then there might have been some references to that in animation, but we've not seen it in the live action. So
That's
this-
interesting.
Yeah.
I'm surprised by that. Wow. Okay.
Yeah. It's something we want. I think fans have wanted for a while. So that obvious choice. And if you're working in this kind of timeline, might as well.
Yeah.
Timeline. The High Republic is so far removed from most of the Star Wars we know. I know you talked about that connective tissue of the design elements evolving from where your story is to when we get to the Phantom Menace. But what's different about this era that will surprise fans who maybe haven't discovered the High Republic yet? Maybe they aren't into the books and comics just yet. Maybe this is their first step into
If
that
this
larger
were your
world.
first step, and I hope, if it were, I hope that I do the fans proud because it is such a beautiful, rich, gorgeous world that people should be investing into as fans, especially again, as a fan myself that grew up with a lot of publishing as opposed to media, because we just didn't have any media the way that we do now. I hope that if you watch The Acolyte, it does inspire you to get further into the High Republic, and the publishing phase 1 was incredible. I think it was just astonishing.
them
I
saying
think that
that
one of the
didn't
things
sell well?
that would be helpful to kind of put in perspective is that we're at the end of that era and moving more into George's era of the Phantom Menace. So my question became, as a fan, when I initially pitched the show to Kathleen, which was an original idea with new characters and not connecting it to Skywalker Saga or any of the existing characters in the High Republic, what I wanted to introduce the fans to the concept too was
After you told her what you had to say, right?
Right.
Is that how we're doing it?
Yeah.
how do you reconcile the Jedi at the height of their power, the galaxy at the height of this age of enlightenment and peace, and who George says they become at the top of the Phantom Menace. And to me, that meant, why don't you tell a story about Star Wars from the perspective of the villains, of the bad guys? And if those bad guys are outnumbered at this point, then that means that you get this opportunity to see how the Jedi very subtly go from who they were in the High Republic and the Old Republic, and who they became by the time you're watching episodes 1, 2, and 3.
Okay, real quick. Now, this isn't... Now, honestly, that's a dope concept.
That's an interesting concept, yeah.
That's a really cool concept here. I mean, and that's the thing that has me really kind of torn on this, is because I like where she's going with it conceptually. But how's that execution, though?
Yeah,
That's what worries me.
Is Leslie Headland the one that has compared it to Frozen meets Kill Bill?
That is correct. And that is a wild combination. And
Yeah.
is that going to work? It's like, I don't know, man. I don't know.
I think if it's Frozen and it's just, like sisters, all right. But if you have somebody struggling with their powers,
that's cool.
that would be a dope concept for, let's say, a Jedi, right? Especially at this age and stuff like that. That could be really, really cool. Kill Bill, obviously. And they did, the actors were also interviewed in this manner, I believe, before this, and they did kind of relay about how much fighting that they have done, how much training that they have done, how much stunt work that they have actually done. So I think pretty confident we're going to get a lot of action here.
That's cool.
At an age of the Jedi that they can really kind of, be the Jedi that we think about, and not so much the provincial stuff that we've seen thus far.
Well, hopefully they use the same fight scene coordinators that Ahsoka uses, because whoever did the fight scenes in Ahsoka knows what they're freaking doing. I mean, those scenes look dope as hell. I hope we get some stuff like that in this one. We'll see.
Who do you think the bad guys are? Because this would be an age where the Sith don't exist, right? Even when Qui-Gon remarked about, maybe encountering a Sith, I mean, that was a big deal. Mace Windu's like, what are you talking about? We haven't seen them for 1,000 years. Who do you think the bad guys might be in this case?
That's interesting. Yeah. I mean, maybe it kind of plays into like dark Jedi, right? Maybe they're not Sith, but they're like these dark side Jedi or something.
Right, they've kind of gone wayward.
Yeah.
Something that did happen in various ages over time. Interesting.
Possible.
Like maybe dark Jedi who have kind of fallen to the dark side, and that's why they become really kind of like, what would you want to call it? Fundamentalist?
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
Interesting.
It's an interesting idea.
That's awesome. And I can tell from the way you referred to Phase 1 that you are a big Star Wars The High Republic publishing fan. I can tell. Do we have any other Star Wars The High Republic fans in the house?
Many more than I thought.
Who are also very excited for The Acolyte?
I just have to say, it is such an honor to be here. Like, Star Wars saved my life. I know that
She fake cried. I heard she fake cried.
it's like,
Yikes.
even the truth is, like, we are so spoiled now with Star Wars media. I know that it can feel sometimes like, well, I like this thing and I don't like that thing, and if you don't like the Acolyte, that's fine. It doesn't matter. Like, the reality is that
that's interesting.
You know, hey, credit where it's due. I respect that. She's not out there, and we haven't finished her sentence, so maybe. But like, I like this. I like what she's saying here, right? Like, too often, fans and even creatives, right? They kind of get into this thing. If you don't like something, you're an ism, you're an ist, you're a this, you're a that. I like the fact that she said, you know what? I'm making this thing, and if you don't like it, that's okay. That's the right approach. To give her a fair shake, that's the right approach. Absolutely.
I do agree. That's interesting how she would be on the defensive already. If you don't like the Acolyte, that's fine. So she's obviously probably heard some of the chatter regarding this, right?
Sure.
From some people in the internet on this thing. That's a very interesting thing. Spill it, T. What is the gossip word that she is faking this? I mean, hey, this is, I got to be honest, this is the first time I've gotten to this interview this far. I just heard, I think Jay, when he brought this to my attention, he's like, yeah, I think she faked her eyes. I'm like, really? She's like, yeah, I think so. So it does kind of seem that way. It's just, it almost like she's feigning emotion. Let's see what she says.
Yeah.
the Acolyte, that's fine. It doesn't matter. Like, the reality is that Star Wars in and of itself is not just a vast universe full of many different characters, many different eras, but it is always, always, always about the spiritual journey of what it is to become who you are. And that's why I am so overwhelmed and grateful to be here, and beyond overwhelmed and grateful to be allowed as a filmmaker to experience what it is like to actually tactilely make something in this world. That is beyond my wildest dreams.
Okay.
So, an experience?
Yeah,
This is like one of her first projects?
Well, no, well, she said in this world, so I'm assuming first Star Wars thing.
Okay. All right.
Yeah,
All right, maybe.
but like, she said all the right things there. Here's the thing that's funny to me is, like, full disclosure, like, I don't really like her.
That's you see,
Right, I'm
and
getting
maybe our bias is unjustified. It's just we haven't heard the best things.
Yeah, and I'm not really like, some people you just you meet them, right, or whatever, you see them on TV or whatever, you're like, oh man, I really like that person. They seem really great, really funny, really down to earth.
Right.
I got to be honest, and this is no disrespect to her at all. It's just the energy I get from her. I'm not loving it. Okay, but here's the thing. There are creatives in Hollywood or whatever like that I have that same feeling towards. Like, I'm not necessarily a huge James Gunn fan as a person, you know?
Yeah.
But his work, a lot of his work is really good. The Guardians movies are fantastic, you know? So I can separate the two. So I don't like her. She comes off a little fake to me. I don't know, but you know what? If she produces a good product, if Acolyte is cool as hell and I love it, then I love it. And I'll give it a fair shake. But just putting it out there, I'm not a huge fan of her necessarily. We'll see what her work is like, though. I'll give it a fair shake.
Yeah, the work might speak for itself. And hey, if it's dope, it's dope. Can't take anything away from that. I know there are a lot of people that are rooting against this series for one reason or another or whatever. Look, if it's here with us and it ain't going anywhere, but despite some people's objections to it, hey, we'll root for it to be the best that it can be. Obviously, this is probably a lot of money that the Disney company's actually selling out here. It's going to make its big debut on Disney Plus. Obviously, they want that platform to be better. We can only hope for the best product at the end of the day. So hopefully it is the best product. And Leslie Headland winds up being the right person for it. We will see. But like I said, I wasn't completely, let's say, transfixed by her interview.